Okay, today I'm going to show you the gridding method in order to enlarge a drawing that you've done on like a normal size piece of paper for something really large, like for example your sidewalk chalk drawing that you're going to be doing on Saturday. So what I have is I have this black piece of paper, and this right here is going to represent my square that I would be drawing on the day of the chalk walk. This piece of paper is about 12 inches by 12 inches. The drawing that I've done, well, it's a lot smaller. So I have to figure out how to get this drawing to fill this whole space. And one way to do that, if you don't feel like freehanding it and just trying to get it right the first time, is doing something called gridding. And what you have to do is you have to do some math. So on my original drawing, what I'm going to do is figure out how big to make a grid. So mine right now measures 6 inches by 6 inches. Oh, that's nice because my big square measures 12 by 12 inches. So my math is going to be pretty easy. So what I'm going to do, since I know that 12 inches is about twice as big as 6 inches, I'm going to just do might do a grid line for every inch. I think that'll do it. So I'm going to go along the edges of my drawing here, and I'm going to make a mark where every inch is. There, and then there's the end there. Go around this edge here and do the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to do the other side too. This way I can line up my lines really nicely and make sure I don't have diagonal lines. I want really nice and straight vertical and horizontal lines. So then I'm going to create a grid. So I'm going to connect these two across. And these two across. I'm not being perfect, but that's okay. There. And then I'm going to go across the other direction. So now I have on my 6 by 6 inch drawing, I have a grid that is 1 inch by 1 inch across the whole thing. One way to make this a little easier on yourself is if you wanted to draw your original drawing on, like, say, graph paper, you could, and then you could just measure how big the grid on the graph paper is, and then measure it and do your math that way. It might save you a little bit of time. This really isn't that hard. So now I have these little 1 inch by 1 inch squares. And what I'm gonna do is on my big chalk square in the day of, I'm gonna create the same grid, but bigger. That's easy to do because I just have to do some math. So if I know that my small drawing is 6 inches by 6 inches, and I need to get it to 12 inches by 12 inches, I'm going to have to multiply everything by 2, right? Because 6 times 2 is 12. Okay, we probably all know that. So that means if I have on my little tiny drawing, I have 1 inch by 1 inch squares. So if I have 1 inch by 1 inch squares, and then I multiply that by 2, and then I multiply that by 2, I'm going to get 2 inch by 2 inch squares. So when I sit down the day of on Saturday morning, I'm going to come out to my beautiful chalk square, and I'm going to start making my grid. This is really helpful to have a big yardstick with you, and maybe a helper, because it does kind of get a little hard to do, but you can do it on your own. And using my chalk, I'm going to make 2 inch marks. across. And there's the end, it's hiding underneath my paper there. Okay, I should have lined that up a little bit better. Let's try that again. I didn't line that up well. You see what I did? I lined it up with the edge of my tape instead of the edge of my square. That would have thrown me off a little bit. So I'm gonna make sure I do it right this time. So I'm gonna come up here and do the same along the top edge. There's one mark, two mark, and there's my last one over on the tape. So then I would come here along this side and do the same. I'm gonna make sure I line it up to the edge of my square, not just where I put my tape was. You do have to be a little bit meticulous with this. You gotta make sure you're doing it correctly. For some people that's really hard. The last one. So now what I'm going to do is I'm using white chalk because the white chalk is the easiest to cover up, and I'm going to line these up and just draw my lines across. There is a tool that you can use that will make this job a lot easier, because on the day of, a yardstick is not going to be long enough to go across your whole piece of your sidewalk. So you're going to end up having to like move your yardstick over a bunch, and you can get kind of crooked that way. But there is a tool that you can buy from Home Depot or Lowe's or any home improvement store that is called a chalk snap line. Just go in and start asking some of the people who work there. They can find it for you. And it's really, really easy to use. What it is it's a piece of string that's rolled up inside of the container, and it retracts, and kind of you can pull it out, almost like a kind of think of it like one of those measuring tapes, okay? But inside of that the whole thing is a bunch of chalk, and it's usually colored chalk. Like it might be like red or something. Make sure I get the right one. There we go. It's maybe like red or pink or yellow or something like that, but it's usually not too much color that it won't mess up your drawing too much. And what you do is then you kind of pull it out, lay it down. You'll have to have somebody on the other side hold it down for you, okay? And then you go to the middle of the string, pull it up, snap it down, and it'll lay a little line of chalk for you. Really handy if you're doing this method, okay? Get all these finished here. Now, I should have the same amount of squares on my little drawing as I do on my big drawing. So I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across the top, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across the side. Perfect. Okay, so now all I have to do is really just focus on one square at a time. Well, this one's really easy. It has nothing in it. So that was easy. Ooh, I'm gonna do this one. Okay, so right here, it kind of comes up and then goes across there. Nice. Now I kind of know it starts there, and there was a little something that starts up there. Okay, I can move. This one didn't have a lot in it, just had a little bit there. So then this one, next one, it looks like that line sort of starts up there, kind of comes down a little bit, and then there's like a little thing that comes up like that. And then I'm gonna go to the next line here, and I'm gonna go and look, and it starts doing this. And I just kind of start going along my picture, and I start adding in the little details that I see as I go along. It makes it a lot easier for your eye to do the drawing than trying to freehand, because you have something to compare the drawing to. So I've got that started there. And then I would go to the next row, and I could come here. It's kind of going across there, and I have a little tip of something showing there. And then this next thing, it goes up a little ways, and then it goes almost across the whole part there. This comes down, and I see a little line there. And then it comes across. And you can kind of get the idea now. So you're using these little grid lines just to help you figure out where everything on the drawing belongs, okay? kind of just helps you figure out how big things need to be so that you don't have to try and re-guess or figure it all out later. So you might be wondering, well, what do you do with all those grid lines when you're finished? Well, so if you did them in white chalk, then you're really not going to have too many issues with just erasing. You can leave them there and just make sure you cover them later. Because I'm talking and doing this at the same time, I'm struggling just a little bit. I would think as an art teacher in elementary school, I'd be really good at talking and drawing at the same time, but sometimes I'm just not. That comes down. Something like that. Okay. Your biggest concern, though, is probably going to be how to get rid of the grid lines when you're finished. And you really do want to make sure that those get covered. You can take your finger and you can kind of smudge some of them out. That might help. You could also take like a broom and try and scrub some of them out. But your biggest way to do that is going to be just as you add color, as you start coloring in, really just make sure you cover. Make sure you cover the grid lines. Don't leave them there anymore. They were just there to help you draw. You don't need them in the end. You don't really need those. They were just there as like a little helper as you got started. Now you know what to do. Have at it and have fun.